Call to order this regular meeting of the Township Committee of the Township of Morris, Wednesday, January 19th, 2020. The time is now 7 p.m. Madam Clerk, a roll call, please.
Mr. Ravitz?
Here.
Mr. Mancuso? Mr. Mancuso? Oh, he's muted.
I was
I see
muted.
you.
I'm here.
Ms. Wilson?
Here.
Ms. Olivo-Moore?
Here.
Mayor Gyorfy?
Here. Before we do the Pledge of Allegiance, I will note to the committee and to the members of the public, we're going to try something new. We're going to have a member of the committee each month lead us in the pledge. So we're not all talking over ourselves on Zoom. And this month, our first committee person with the honors of leading us in the pledge is Committeeman Mancuso. So please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you. Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mancuso. First item on our agenda this evening is the approval of the minutes of 4 Township Committee meetings from December 2021 and the minutes from the reorganization meeting held on January 5th, 2022. May I have a motion to approve these minutes?
You do have to separate out. Eric cannot vote on the first 4, sir.
I saw Mr. Mancuso offer the motion. There was a second.
This is for
Second.
the first 4.
Okay, now that that's seconded, yeah, so we're gonna have to pull the first 4 to vote separately since Ms. Olivo-Moore cannot approve them since she was not yet sworn in. And then she can then approve the January 5th minutes. So I go to Madam Clerk. Or is all in favor?
All in favor.
Aye.
Okay, so all in favor from December 2nd, 8th, 15th, and 21st?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Seeing none. And then the January 5th meeting minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Next on tonight's agenda are proclamations. This evening we'll be providing 2 proclamations. The first is honoring and remembering Dr. Martin Luther King, as we this past Monday celebrated Martin Luther King Day. And the second is proclaiming January 2022 as School Board Recognition Month. First, for getting to our Martin Luther King Day proclamation, I will turn it over to Deputy Mayor Wilson, who will read into the record the proclamation.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm honored to read this proclamation this evening. I have just a couple of words by way of introduction, and I will have more to say at my commentary at the end. Every year on the 3rd Monday in January, we join communities all over our nation in celebrating the life and legacy of one of the greatest leaders our country has ever known, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Special thanks to our local Mlk Observance Committee for the outstanding work they did this year, as they have for the last 52 years, in offering such a memorable tribute to Dr. King this past Monday. While this year's local tribute was virtual, it was as moving and thought-provoking as ever. I will have a little more to say about this tribute later, but for now, I'll just let the proclamation speak for itself. Whereas every year, America sets aside a day to remember the life, the works, the teaching, and the vision of a giant of our nation's history, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And whereas Dr. King gave a mighty voice to the quiet hopes of millions, offered a redemptive path for all, led a nation to the mountaintop, and enabled us to see the promised land. And whereas Dr. King, who was born on January 15th, 1929, is known around the world for his brave leadership, powerful speeches, and nonviolent activism as a leader of the civil rights movement. And whereas Dr. King devoted his life to advancing equality, justice, freedom, and opportunity for people of all races, and economic standings. And whereas Dr. King led many peaceful protests, bringing together people of diverse ages, races, and faiths, and successfully advocated for positive social change in the United States. And whereas Dr. King's efforts led to the establishment of many federal and local laws prohibiting discrimination and fostering human rights, civil rights, and voting rights. And whereas Dr. King's teachings continue to guide and inspire us in addressing the challenges in our own time, and whereas Dr. King remained dedicated to the principles of nonviolence throughout his life that was tragically cut short, and whereas, as Dr. King stated, nonviolence is the answer to the crucial political and moral questions of our time. It is a powerful and just weapon which cuts without wounding and ennobles the man who wields it. Nonviolence is the sword that heals. And whereas Dr. King also stated, in the process of gaining our rightful place, we must not be guilty of wrongful deeds. Let us not seek to satisfy our thirst for freedom by drinking from the cup of bitterness and hatred. We must forever conduct our struggle on the high plane of dignity and discipline. We must not allow our creative protest to degenerate into physical violence. Again and again, we must rise to the majestic heights of meeting physical force with soul force. And whereas the Township of Morris can honor Dr. King's legacy by rededicating ourselves to the values, ideals, and principles he lived and espoused, now therefore we, the members of the Township Committee of the Township of Morris, do hereby proclaim January 17th, 2022 as a day for honoring and remembering with renewed reverence the life and the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
Very nice.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Wilson, for reading the proclamation so eloquently and for authoring it too. On behalf of the township, thank you for doing that. Moving on to our second proclamation, which I will actually be presenting to the Board of Education later this month at their meeting. But we are recognizing our elected members of the Morris School District. It is School Board Recognition Month. And I will just note, I just wanted to recognize those from the public who serve us, similar to our body, but governing our school district. And also say that the township does commend the service of the Morris School District and its members to our community and its children, and be it further that the Township Committee proclaims January 2022 as School Board Recognition Month in Morris Township, and urges all citizens to join in recognizing the dedication of local school board members, past and present, as we work together to advance educational opportunities for our children. And I will note that this year's school board president and vice president are Township of Morris residents, Melissa Spiota and Linda Murphy. And on the school board this year, we have Nancy Vangiola, Meredith Davidson, Lucia Galdi, Susan Pedalino, Vivian Rodriguez, Alan Smith, and Elizabeth Wall. And we also just wanted to recognize Ann Rhines, who had served for so many years on the Board of Education and a long time township president. Before we move on to the next agenda item of public comments, I did just want to note we continue to be virtual, especially given the current situation with the Omicron variant and COVID. The health and safety and well-being of the public, as well as our township employees and the governing body, are paramount to us. So we are going to continue operating in this fashion as we have the past 2 years for the foreseeable future. In the Township Committee room with me this evening is Deputy Mayor Wilson, Township Administrator Tim Quinn, our Municipal Attorney Jared Cantor, and our IT manager this evening is Greg Sims. Remotely, we have Committeeman Mancuso, Committeeman Ravitz, Committeewoman Olivo-Moore, and our Special Counsel John Mills, as well as our Township Clerk Danielle Lewis. At this time now, I'll open the meeting to public comment. To agenda items only. This is something new this year. If you're coming if you remember from previous years or last year on our agenda, the first public comment was general public comment. This year, in an effort to remain focused to the Township Committee business in the beginning, we are asking members of the public to stick to agenda items only in the first public comment section. All general comment can be made later in the evening. So I'll open the meeting to public comment on agenda items only. Please state your name and address for the record before speaking. Please note that comments are limited to 5 minutes per speaker. If you have questions and that you would like answered, you agree to have your time to speak will be, let me state that again. If you have questions you would like answered, you agree that your time to speak will be deferred for this purpose. So Mr. Sims, are there any members of the public wishing to speak? I do see one hand up. Mr. O'Reilly, if you would be so kind as to state your name and address for the record, please. Mr. O'Reilly?
He's just muted.
Yeah, I'm unmute and then I leave the button on my finger twitches and anyway, I'm unmuted, right?
Yes.
James Riley, 50 Independence Way. One thing is that I noticed there's several resolutions concerning councils. Who is the township attorney and is he referred to in these non-fair and open contracts?
Our municipal attorney this year is Jared Cantor, who's sitting next to me.
Right.
As I believe we've stated publicly, and as committee woman, now Deputy Mayor Wilson had stated during her reports last year, the Township Committee went through an RFP process for the professional hires this year. So in terms of the second point of your question, Mr. O'Reilly, about non-fair and contracts, or can you restate your question, the second part?
Well, I was just saying there were a number of non-contracts. So it's Jared Cantor for general counsel. That's the one, right?
Mr. Cantor is our municipal attorney. We do have other counsels for other types of business we hire for their specialties as we do each year. Most of them are an annual appointment process that the Township Committee appoints either at the reorg meeting or at the beginning of the regular meetings like tonight at our January meeting.
So other counsels named are either for particular purposes as stated or work with him or substitute for him if he cannot be present.
More or less, yeah. There's redevelopment council, there are labor, tax appeals, that sort of thing. This evening we have special counsel Mills on with us as well when there's business that may concern their purview or need their expertise.
Okay, and furthermore, has the recycling been changed? Because there's an item here about recycling. Has the sorting of recycling been changed at all?
No.
That's for the annual grant.
It's Mr. Quinn, if you wanted to explain that for Mr. O'Reilly.
Mr. O'Reilly, that is for the annual grant that we do. We have to adopt a resolution. The governing body needs to adopt a resolution for that. We do get funds that come back from the state that we use for recycling purposes.
Thank you. And the one about the housing partnership for Morris County, does that have to do with affordable housing?
Yes, sir, it does. That's a annual contract. They handle all of the resales of the owner occupied units where the owners own them and then they're going to sell them. So they've been doing that for us since 2012. It's an annual resolution since that time.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. O'Reilly. Appreciate it. Seeing no other digital hands raised, will someone make a motion to close our first public comment?
So
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Moving on to ordinances for introduction. We have one ordinance for introduction on tonight's agenda. Madam Clerk, if you would please read the title of the ordinance into the record for us.
Ordinance number 1-22 22, an ordinance amending Chapter 447 swimming pools, Article 1 municipal pool of the Code of Ordinances of the Township of Morris to replace Section 447-5 membership fees in its entirety.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We need to read the full ordinance, or
No,
we can
Mayor.
dispense with the reading, correct? Thank you. Is there a motion to approve ordinance number 1-22 on first reading and schedule for final reading and adoption at the Township Committee meeting on February 16th, 2022?
So moved.
Second,
Mr. Ravitz?
Yes, I move it. Yes.
I'm sorry, were you going to
Oh,
open to
you're
discussion?
asking for a vote.
I'm sorry, Madam Clerk, do we have to move to discussion before we vote?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I jumped the gun on that. Did you want to open to discussion amongst yourselves?
Are there any members of the committee who would like to comment? Seeing none, will we move to a roll call vote, Madam Clerk?
Sure. Mr. Ravitz?
Yes.
Mr. Mancuso?
yes.
Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
Ms. Olivo-Moore?
yes,
Mayor Gyorfy?
Yes. Okay. And like I said before, there'll be a public hearing on that ordinance at our next regular meeting in February 16th. Resolutions, we have 27 resolutions on tonight's agenda. As stated during the public comment, many of these resolutions have to deal with our annual appointment process of professionals. That we are also appointing several members of the township to volunteer positions through these resolutions. There are a few others outside of that, which are open for discussion if needed. But with that, I'll call for a motion to approve all resolutions by one motion. And then I believe after that, we'll have to strip out a few for separate votes. So with that, is there a first and a second?
I'll offer it.
I'll move that
Second.
we pass all, or that we vote on the full package of resolutions. Right?
Yep.
Okay.
All right, is there a second?
I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye,
Madam Clerk?
Mr. Cantor, did you want me to read all of the resolutions by title or?
Well, I mean, I guess traditionally, do you typically read them all in by title?
We have not.
We have not.
But then I think it's okay to stick with your tradition.
Okay.
Okay.
Then in terms of separating items out, I would request that we vote separately or take out resolution 16-22 and resolution 39-22, which have to deal with the fire department, which I must abstain from. I'll also note that I believe 16-22 will need to be modified slightly to reflect that the deputy mayor of the township will need to be listed in that resolution as opposed to the mayor.
And Madam Clerk, we also have to address 40-22 with the change in the value.
Correct. So the published agenda 4022, the not to exceed amount was 120,000. We are increasing that to 125,000, taking another 25,000 from what was that, a general capital fund line?
Yes, ma'am. There was 25,000 appropriated in 2020 and $100,000 appropriated in 2021. And that resolution will cover both of those capital appropriations by the governing body.
So Mayor, it's my suggestion you pull that one as well. This is being amended.
Which number was that again?
40.
40. Okay, so I'm seeing 16, 39, and 40 being pulled for separate votes. Are there any other resolutions that members of the committee would like to vote separately on? Seeing none then, do we need a motion to then vote on them separately, or can the clerk call the rolls?
I would have a motion to adopt the remaining resolutions with no discussion on that. And then each of these resolutions can be moved, seconded, discussion, and we'll vote the three that were pulled.
I'll make a motion to move the remaining resolutions.
Is there a second? Okay,
Second.
Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Thank you.
Mr. Ravitz,
Yes.
Mr. Mancuso,
Yes.
Ms. Wilson,
Yes.
Ms. Olivo-Moore,
yes,
Mayor Gyorfy?
Yes.
And Mayor, given that you're recusing yourself from 16 and 39, the deputy mayor should ask for those motions for 16 and 39.
Great.
So do I have a motion to move resolution 1622?
And 3922.
All of them at the same time?
Uh,
I thought
16
you
and
said
39.
Separately.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably better to do them separately. So
Okay,
16,
so we'll do them separately. We'll do the three we pulled separately, first being 1622. So do I have a motion to approve resolution 16-22?
So moved.
Second.
You guys want discussion, deputy mayor? if you want.
Is there any discussion? We won't have this. Does anyone have any comments? Okay, then all in favor.
Roll call.
Oh, roll call, okay. Madam
Mr.
Clerk, roll
Ravitz?
call, please.
Sure. Mr. Ravitz,
Yes.
Mr. Mancuso,
Yes.
Ms. Wilson,
Yes,
Ms. Olivo-Moore.
Yes.
Thank you.
next up is 39-22. Can I have a motion to move 39-22?
So moved.
So moved.
Second,
Was that, which one was 3922? Oh, that was the other fire department. Okay.
Yep.
Um,
Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Mr. Ravitz,
Yes.
Mr. Mancuso,
Yes.
Ms. Wilson,
Yes,
Ms. Olivo-Moore.
Yes.
And I guess Mayor.
okay, and resolution 40-22.
Mark to do that one.
Mayor, no.
Oh, okay,
Thank you, deputy mayor.
thank you.
Thank you for stepping in. Yeah, so is there a motion for 40-22?
There
I'll
is,
move
yes.
that.
Seconded? Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Mr. Ravitz,
Yes.
Mr. Mancuso,
Yes.
Ms. Wilson,
Yes,
Ms. Olivo-Moore,
Yes.
Mayor Gyorfy.
Yes. Thank you, everyone, for your patience on those. Before we get into the consent calendar, I did forget to mention earlier, when I said everyone who was here with us in the committee room, I also wanted to note, as requested by the public, to let everyone who's watching with us at home, how many members of the public are with us virtually. And this evening, right now, we have 11 members with us, and I'll report back on that before the next public comment period. Now that we've moved through the resolutions, we'll move on to the consent calendar. Can I have a motion to approve the consent calendar this evening?
so moved.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Ms. Mancuso.
I think you might have been moving.
Peter,
it.
were you just
Second.
seconding?
yeah, sure, I'll second it. Okay.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Consideration of monthly reports. We have received reports from the police chief and the tax collector for December 2021. Can I have a motion to approve these reports?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The following reports for the month of December 2021 are on file in the office of the township clerk and the township administrator. Finance, joint court, Morristown Township Library, police, and the tax collector. Now we're moving on for claims for payment, the list of bills and vouchers. The total amount of bills and vouchers for this meeting are $8,273,520.20. We are also the tax collector, keep in mind, for the school district and the library, with that and the county. May I have a motion to approve the list of bills and vouchers?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Madam Clerk, may we have a roll call on that, please?
Mr. Ravitz,
Yes.
Mr. Mancuso,
Yes.
Ms. Wilson,
Yes,
Ms. Olivo-Moore,
Yes.
Mayor Gyorfy.
Yes. Am I reading this? Okay, moving right along. We are at standing committee reports and commentary by the township committee. At this time, we're going to go around around our virtual dais for standing committee reports and general commentary. I will comment now, members of the public who do join us monthly, you'll notice that many of these agenda items are in a different order than we have been sticking to in the past. On advice of council as well as our clerk, we have changed items of the agenda to try to make the meeting more streamlined and keep votes closer knit as opposed to separated. If you're wondering why we're going through the claims of payment and vouchers instead of at the end, that is why. And we also, as part of that, consolidated our standing committee reports with our general commentary from the Township Committee. So with that, I will be more than happy to recognize Deputy Mayor Wilson if she would like to go first for her
Sure.
committee reports and commentary.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. I have two standing committee reports tonight, Environment and Transportation. So on the Energy, Environment, Sustainability Standing Committee, my report includes the following. Our Environmental Commission completed their annual report for 2021. I believe it is now posted on the website. If it's not, it will be very shortly. I encourage people to take a look at it. It is an extremely impressive list of accomplishments. As a written document, it's very impressive. The content, the graphics, and the clarity of the explanations. So for anyone who's interested in knowing more about what our Environmental Commission did last year, this report is definitely worth reading. And I want to say a special thanks to Chairman Buzz Kenny, who I know spent hours writing it. It was very well done. The EC held its first meeting last week. They spent the entire time discussing their goals for the coming year. Some of the topics they'll be working on include composting, conservation, energy aggregation, energy efficiency, green transportation, community outreach, recycling, and more. A very important goal for 2022 is that this year, for the first time ever, Morris Township is pursuing certification through the Sustainable Jersey program. This certification is widely admired across our state. Certification will provide us the public recognition we deserve for all the different actions pertaining to sustainability that we have been working on now for years. It's very clear to me that we've already done plenty of activities to qualify for certification. The next step is gathering the materials to document our accomplishments. The first set of documentation is due in June. This is a big job. Our newly established green team will be meeting in the next couple of days to plan how we're going to do this in ways that are as easy, efficient, and user-friendly as possible for everyone. I will say also that environmental initiatives are very much on the radar of this governing body in the year ahead. We are in the process of discussing our plans and clarifying our priorities. You can definitely expect to hear more about this as the year progresses. So to be continued on that. On the Transportation and Circulation Standing Committee, I'm happy to be joined by Committeewoman Tara Olivo-Moore in serving on this year's standing committee. A big part of our responsibility is to work with the Transportation Advisory Committee, TAC, to explore and recommend ways to improve walking, biking, driving, and parking in our town. An important purpose of TAC is to give residents more of a voice than they've ever had in working together with our professionals to identify workable improvement recommendations. Rick By, one of our resident members, who's been a prolific contributor to TAC's efforts, will serve as this year's chair. I will serve as this year's vice chair. In addition to their ongoing subcommittee work on ways to improve walking, biking, driving, and parking in our town, TAC's major goals for the year ahead include develop a written complete streets policy, get up and running a TAC webpage that creates a central spot for one-stop linkage to all things transportation in our town, plan and offer a bike loop with improvements based on what we learned from doing this for the first time last year. Another important function of TAC is to provide a forum for residents to ask questions and share concerns about specific locations in our town that are important to them. TAC meets on the second Wednesday of every month at 7 o'clock by Zoom. These meetings are open to the public. We have 2 public comment times, one at the beginning, one at the end. And I encourage everyone who's interested in learning more about TAC's work or making suggestions of your own to attend. Thank you, Mayor. Back to you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Wilson. Did you have general commentary you wanted to provide at this point?
Oh, are we doing, so we're providing our general comment too?
Correct.
Okay, all right, on that front. Congratulations to Detective Ryan Farrell on his promotion to the rank of sergeant. Congratulations to residents who have been appointed to serve on various boards and committees. Jeff Grizel is appointed to be a member of TAC, Merle Johnson and Mitchell Hirsch on their appointments to EDACT, our Economic Development Advisory Committee. A few words about this year's MLK observance. Every year on the 3rd Monday in January, our local MLK Observance Committee presents its annual tribute to honor the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King. I look forward to this event every year. It is always so moving and uplifting and thought-provoking. This year was no exception, but it was moving in a different way. This year's tribute was virtual. I watched it from my computer. I missed the in-person gathering of hundreds of people sharing this experience together. As I watched, I was struck by a sense of resilience and courage. Do what you can with what you have, where you are. I was also struck by appreciation for the silver linings. No need to go out in the bad weather. Unlike the in-person format, with the video recording, I could re-listen to the parts that really spoke to me. For me, the most moving call to action, to service, came in the benediction. Grant us the courage to do the unique work that is ours. Raise up our personal gifts. When we feel overwhelmed, help us to focus on the next step. Use us in all our imperfections to transform the world. Do your little bit of good where you are. It's those little bits of good put together that overwhelm the world. For me, this is the flame that carried the Observance Committee's mission for this day, to educate, motivate, and inspire people to embrace Dr. King's dream of the beloved community. In response to Dr. King's call, life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? The answer I received from this year's tribute was, let us each contribute our own bit of good with what we have, where we are. Thank you to the Observance Committee and to everyone who participated in the program. It was a tribute I will never forget. I did want to comment briefly also on the school board proclamation. I'm glad to see that our state, for the first time ever, has established January as School Board Recognition Month. As someone who worked as an educator in a public school system for 30 years, I know well the importance of a school board's work. The oversight work school boards do is vital to fulfilling their most important responsibility, ensuring that all the kids in our community get the best education possible. The work that school boards do is challenging and demanding, especially now. I commend our school board members for their willingness to serve and for the time, the dedication, and the skill they bring to their work. I'm proud, I am truly proud to live in a community that has such an excellent school system. And many thanks to all of our school board members for everything they do to make that excellence possible. So that is my comment for this evening. Thank you, Mayor. Back to you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Wilson. I will now pass along to members of the committee who are joining us virtually by order of seniority, like we did at the reorg meeting. So, Mr. Mancuso, if you'd be so kind.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it. Ms. Wilson, your words were very, very well spoken and very well appreciated and very eloquent.
Thank you.
My good wishes to you. I don't know if anybody realizes, but at the February meeting, it will mark 2 full years that we have been doing these meetings virtually. And very, 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 we've done them very well, but boy, I feel very strongly, as does Mr. Ravitz, to get these meetings back to reality and to be able to do them in person. It was a very sad week because 4 people who were very, very in touch with and served Morris Township for years passed on. First of all was Fred Rossi, our former administrator, who was a longtime friend and a longtime administrator. He was here mostly during the years when I was off the board, but just a wonderful man, and we send our best wishes to himself, his wife, and all of his family. Another good friend was Don Canfield. You probably would only know him maybe through his son, but I coached his son in a 10-year-old baseball league several years ago. I don't want to get into the details of how many years ago, but quite a long time ago. Mary Kenny, again, was a longtime Morris Township resident, lived here for 94 years, just a wonderful person. And she also passed away this week. But the one that struck me the most was Pamela Sheldrick died. Now, if you don't remember her, she ran in the election against me 6 years ago. And it was as congenial an election as there was between the race between Mr. Gyorfy and Mr. Ravitz and myself. It was good to see those 2 people who had that good feeling of camaraderie where you could discuss issues, Democrat or Republican, but come together when the most important time of coming together was. Anyway, we're doing a lot of work in the township, Tim Quinn, Fran, myself, and the mayor, as the finance committee, because we are probably facing maybe not the overwhelming difficulties that we had last year, but there are difficulties this year, and we are working very, very hard. I'd like to commend the department heads and everybody in the township who has helped us to put together at least the remnant, not the remnants, but the beginnings of a budget. And we'll be getting back to you on that, but we're working very, very hard. And we want to be sure that we present a representative budget that will make us all as happy as possible, considering everything that's been going on in the world with the COVID. And then again, Kathy mentioned it, but my best wishes to Detective Ryan Farrell, who was promoted to sergeant this week. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mancuso, and my condolences to the families of those you mentioned earlier, and my condolences to you and your family for having known them. Mr. Ravitz.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. First of all, I would also like to echo the words of Committee Woman Wilson on the school board and all the good tidings and that the good wishes that she expressed for the school board and the outstanding job they're doing. I'd also like to, thank my friend Mr. Mancuso for these kind words, Peter, for the kind words. We do put dialogue above politics, and we do kind of pride ourselves on that. Also, my condolences to those who have lost loved ones, not only in the past few days, but over this long couple of years. Peter's absolutely right. I am looking forward to spending the first time on the dais one of these days, and hopefully that'll come this year. As far as committee reports, throughout the course of the year, I'll be talking about infrastructure, parks and rec, and fire. As I had mentioned in the reorg meeting, there's a couple of initiatives that I'm working on with infrastructure and parks and rec that I'd like to see to fruition. And we've been talking about budgets mostly so far this early on in the year. So as soon as we dispense with that, I know that I've seen some of the initiatives that I'd like to see, now in the budget. So I'm looking forward to, really getting things done for the community. Always, as I always like to say, continuous improvement. But for my commentary this evening, I just want to, thank everybody for participating in your local government. This is my standard opening. I absolutely believe it. It's why I say it every time. National politics may get all the spotlight, but it's what we do here locally that brings the biggest economic and quality of life impact to our lives. And I believe, and I know that we have more in common than can possibly divide us. And Dr. Reverend Martin Luther King stated, I am convinced that men hate each other because they fear each other. And they fear each other because they don't know each other. And they don't know each other because they don't communicate with each other. And they don't communicate with each other because they are separated from each other. He also stated that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And my last quote from Martin Luther King, he had said, our lives begin to end the day that we become silent about things that matter. And it's so appropriate that for this month and this week with celebrating the life and legacy of Dr. King, that we can all get behind some of the words that he had said. Certainly, the vast majority of us will agree, whether one is liberal or conservative, that throughout American history, what makes the U.S. so special is our right to vote. And Americans have fought and died protecting this ideal. We've been taught this throughout our elementary and secondary school educations. Every eligible citizen has the right to cast a ballot. We've had some hiccups, and it's certainly not been perfect, but by and large, American elections are considered the safest and fairest in the world. And as such, there has always been a peaceful transition of power because, like it or not, we accept the results. Unsubstantiated claims of fraud have undermined the confidence of election results by a sizable minority of Americans. The unbroken streak of peaceful transition of power came to a frightening end last year this month. Trying to restore confidence in U.S. elections is imperative, and rightly so. But these are extraordinary times, and precious is as it should be. Democracy, as we all know it, is fighting for its very existence. And that brings me back to every eligible person having the right to cast a vote. And certainly voting rights are in the news these days. Keep in mind that millions of Americans have fought, too many making the ultimate sacrifice to protect our democracy and that right to vote. If we're no longer protecting the right to vote, why bother having the military? What are we fighting to protect? Money? Justice is at the very core of our republic. Equal justice under law. An American ideal that no one is above the law is another area that the majority of us agree. We're moving into a phase where the American public is learning more about what transpired that led up to the events of January 6th last year. Those who incited and those who aided and abetted and those who participated in a failed coup attempt must face justice. We have this in common too. There is unity in justice. Let's all be part of the solution rather than be silent. Let's rise to the occasion and strive to be a nation that has liberty and justice for all. And let's also now focus on being better citizens who, through being informed, vigilant, and engaged, will continue to elect leaders at all levels of government who put their oath of office ahead of politics. And keep in mind that disadvantaged people aren't looking for special treatment. They're looking for equal protection under the law. And equal protection for all of us does not infringe upon or diminish the rights of any of us. And finally, let's not marginalize the people who have less political or economic power as some of us might now enjoy. Rather, let's face up and stand up to those who profit from keeping us divided. Thank you, and back to you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Committeeman Ravitz. I will now recognize our newest member of the Township Committee, Committeewoman Tara Olivo-Moore.
Thank you. Thank you to my colleagues. Your love for our country and our township shines through all your words. My standing committees are the Department of Public Works and the Sewer Utility. Work on the budgets has begun. The Department of Public Works did a great job during our last storm, preparing the streets before any snow fell and plowing during the night. The streets are now clear, which makes us all safer. I have been meeting with some of the committees that I share with other members of the governing body. These groups have many Morris Township residents who are vigorous and active on behalf of our town, and the committees are working hard on initiatives to improve lives in our community. It's great to see that volunteerism. Coronavirus continues to spread widely. Cases are coming down, thank goodness, but there are still a lot of people out there who test positive. Since our last meeting on January 5th, I have had COVID. It was not fun. I do not wish COVID on any of you. And so to that point, there is a vaccination clinic coming up this Friday at Morristown High School for school district families. If you have a child in the schools, you can go to this clinic. Ages 5 and older and adults can receive vaccinations, and that's Friday at Morristown High School from 4 until 8 p.m. I am very open to hearing from residents, and if you would like to send me a message, my township email is TOLIVOMORE@morristwp.com. Thank you.
Thank you, Tara. And it's great having you here with us. And we're all happy you had a speedy recovery. And we are so thankful for you for being a frontline healthcare worker. And it's great to have your perspective, not only with us on the Township Committee, but also our Township Board of Health, which we had our first meeting of this year before tonight's meeting. And we have some very capable members of our residents who serve with us on the Board of Health. It's really tremendous to have so many doctors with firsthand knowledge and frontline experience to be advising the township on health-related matters. So thank you. For my own commentary and standing committee reports, I did just want to lead off in what Mr. Mancuso already stated, but it's with deep regret that the Township of Morris shares that former administrator Fred Rossi passed away recently. Fred served as Township Administrator from 1994 to 2010. He was a dedicated public servant to our residents through and through, and our thoughts and prayers are with the Rossi family at this time. I did want to note something that's happening recently that was the work of previous committees in the past through the budget process, but earlier this week, work on our first electric vehicle charging station on municipal property started, expanding our parking lot in the municipal building in the back for 4 more spaces that will be used for electric vehicles of our municipal fleet in the future. That is thanks to the hard work of the committee in years past. As I said, that was approved in last year's budget, I believe. So I'm happy to report that that work is moving forward. For my standing committees, which I serve as chair, which is communications and legislation, as well as engineering. Similar to what Bud and Mr. Mancuso had said, we're having planning meetings now for those committees where there are budget items under our purview. We are having those meetings going through our municipal budget line by line. I will have to say, now serving for the first time on the finance committee with Mr. Mancuso, it is very impressive to see the level of detail that our department heads, as well as our township administrator, knows of each line item and knows, where we can, focus our efforts this year and where we can take money from last year. Our department heads do such a tremendous job, and there's such a wealth of knowledge for us to make the sound choices we have to in this year's budget process. So thank you to them for all of their hard work, which is going to be ongoing for the next several weeks. For further commentary, I did just want to note, as always, again, this is one of those things where I say, I can't believe I'm saying this again, but the beginning of February is the Morris Township OEM's annual Rose Sale, and our next monthly meeting will take place after Valentine's Day. So reminding members of the public, if you want some of the best roses at definitely the best prices in the area, the OEM will be having their Rose Sale fundraiser at Hillside Firehouse on Western Avenue. Those dates will be posted to the Township website and Facebook page as we get closer, but they always do a tremendous job, and it's for a good cause, so I recommend you take advantage of that. I'd also echo Ms. Olivo-Moore to thank our DPW for all their hard work during these winter storms. We have another one coming up tomorrow. They put in a ton of time in overnight hours prepping our roads so that our residents can be safe when they're driving to work or coming back from work. So thank you to them for all their hard work. And I did just want to congratulate and thank the volunteers who have been appointed this year to our volunteer boards. There's so much work that is done in the township that we rely on volunteers, residents from Morris Township to help us out with and advise and counsel us on. We are so happy to be appointing so many new and familiar faces this year to help us out with that work. And also thank you to the professionals who we appointed this evening. So with that, if there are any further comments from the Township Committee, I'll recognize that. If not, we will move on to our second public comment. Seeing none. So as I said before, I will state how many members of the public are with us during our public comment periods, just for awareness of those joining us from home. As of now, we do have 12 members of the public joining us virtually. At this time, I'll open the meeting to the second public comment portion for general commentary. Please state your name and address for the record before speaking. Please note that your comments are limited to 5 minutes. If you have questions that you would like answered, your remaining time to speak will be yielded back for this purpose. So I do see 2 hands raised. Mr. O'Reilly is first, followed by Mrs. Memmer.
Since I already spoke, well, let's go to the other party and I'll speak.
Okay, Mr. O'Reilly, we will get to you once our first round is up of this section, if that's okay.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, Mrs. Memmer.
Unmute yourself, ma'am.
Okay, here I go. Marlene Memmer, 63 Independence Way. Good evening and Happy New Year to all. I wanted to congratulate Mayor Gyorfy and our new committee woman, Tara Olivo-Moore. I also want to take this time to recognize and thank Mr. Quinn, our municipal staff, and our municipal committee members for the services they provide to the residents of Morris Township throughout the year. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank
Very
you, Mrs.
kind.
Memmer. We appreciate it. I will now recognize Leslie Jones Wentz, whose hand is raised. And if you're able to unmute yourself. Okay, we'll give Leslie a bit more time. if there's an issue on her end to figure that out. In the meantime, I will then go back to Mr. O'Reilly for his comment.
Yeah, just a question. We know how many people are watching online now. Do we have any idea how many visits there are to our videos of our meetings?
Yes, we do. That is based on the count provided by YouTube. So if you do, there are two ways you can watch our videos. One is by watching it actually on our website. But when you do that, it's actually just a preview screen of what our YouTube page is. So if you're viewing from, you can view our video from the Township website under the Township Committee tab, or you can just go to YouTube and search for Morris Township videos, and any member of the public can see that. So when you are on the YouTube page below this video screen, you should see the amount of views that have been logged on that video.
So you know the number of visits, but you don't necessarily know whether any are repeat visits from the same party.
No, we do not.
Is that public information? Is that public information?
You would, you can feel free to reach out to Google to find that out through their data centers, but no, it is not public information to my knowledge. It's just the amount of visitors and that's it.
Okay. Hey, one more question. In the budgetary process, you often cannot draw up the budget. I guess always cannot draw up the budget until you know what money you're getting from the state. And also because of all the additional federal appropriations this year, I suppose you'll also need to know what you're getting from the federal government, right? And do you know the timeline on that?
I will turn it over to Mr. Quinn for him to summarize for you.
Mr. O'Reilly, primarily on the revenue, our CFO does what's called an annual financial statement, which he goes back and reviews everything from the previous year. And that's usually done, has to be reported to the state on or about February 10th. That time has been extended because of COVID, but she's very diligent and gets it done by the end of the month. And that gives us roughly the amount of money that we have available to add into the budget in addition to the municipal taxes that are raised. As far as the money coming from the state, that's a small part of the budget. That has remained consistent for the past 11 years, has not changed at all. As far as the federal funding from the ARP, yes, we have our number. We received our first tranche in July of 2021, and we'll be receiving our second tranche this year. We will be looking at where we can use that money for past where we've been under budget and have to repay ourselves back on the swim pool utility and the parking utility, but also on some projects that are permitted for the use of that money that we put into the budget. But I certainly don't anticipate spending it all in 2022. We want to be, guarded with it, and we still haven't out of COVID yet, but we'll be looking at it very carefully with the governing body to decide what projects that money should be appropriated to.
So you can estimate pretty well what you might expect from the federal and state governments, so that will not delay your budgetary process?
No, sir. I fully anticipate that the budget should be introduced in March, and I'd like to have a public hearing on it for the April meeting with a vote by the governing body. That's the schedule that we've used for many, many years, and we are on target for that.
Thank you.
And Mr. O'Reilly, just to follow up, I'll state that we are not, I think it's atypical for us to receive funding from the federal government. As you may know, the money we did get was from the American Rescue Plan, which was the response package from Congress to help state and local governments deal with the economic repercussions of COVID. So we will definitely be very mindful of how we're going to use that funds. The Treasury Department has provided guidelines for municipalities on what can qualify for those funds. But we will in fact need to budget those funds that we do plan to expend through that program. And there is a time frame where we have to. I know we've talked about this for a few years, but the township has been focused, and some of our priorities as members of this committee has been to apply for more federal grants. And we continue to do that where we think we are competitive. Last year, we submitted our first federal grant through FEMA for our fire department for replacement apparatus. And we're going to continue to do that to try to get some more of our federal tax dollars back up here to New Jersey for the benefit of our community. So thank you, Mr. O'Reilly, for your comments and questions.
Thank you.
Mrs. Jones-Wentz, if you wanted to speak, if you could just raise your hand again and we'll try to get you back on. Okay. Seeing none, I don't see any further hands raised. Will someone make a motion to close our second public comment?
So moved, sir.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, well, that leaves us to the end already. We already paid our bills and everything, and we did a consent calendar, which is unusual for us. And I think, have seen, this is, we're going to have to learn to get used to it, this format of the agenda, but I do think it's been a bit more expeditious. So thank you, Mr. Cantor and Mrs. Lewis for your advice and counsel on making our agendas a little bit more productive. But with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
At 8:01 p.m. this evening, we will adjourn. The next Township Committee meeting will be held on Wednesday, February 16th at 2022 at 7 p.m. via Zoom with closed session at 5 p.m. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good night.
Thanks, everyone. Good
Thank you.
night.
Good night,
Bye.
everybody.
Everybody.
Bye-bye.